Today, we will go over two main Goetia stories and a few minor ones from before I did the Abramelin ritual.
Before that ritual, I still had trouble dealing with certain Goetia entities, and this video shares exactly a few of those stories. Most specifically the time Vasago tricked and lied to me, which ended up being a turning point in my Goetia journey. I'll also share one of my last stories before the Abramelin experience, which was with Stolas. I'm also going to share everything that I learned from that great professor. I hope you take this video as a cautionary tale of the risks we face when dealing with Goetia. I hope you learn how essential it is to have properly studied the system before attempting it. You should also already have the basic magical training with meditation and other less risky magical practices. But I also hope that you may learn a bit more about the power these entities hold and how they can help us improve our lives.
But first, I want to share some of the smaller stories with you that don't fit in a video dedicated to them. One of my first success stories was with Orias.
The grimoire tells us that he works with transformation and metamorphosis. And at that point, throughout my entire life, I had always had an anxious attachment style due to my insecurities. It caused me to be needy and easily saddened, on top of paranoid, creating stories inside my head that would eventually cause me such harm that I would often give up on people because of these fantasies that arose from my insecurities. I felt that if I was able to change that aspect of myself, it would be an extremely powerful change. So I did a petition to Orias, asking that I begin having a secure attachment style. It was a transformation that seemed almost impossible, so it was also kind of a test of the power from the Goetia system. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, a comment, and without spending any money, the absolute best thing you can do for me is watching this video until the end, which I hope you do. If you want to support me further, the link for our Patreon is in the description. You'll gain access to the ritual I use for evocation, and be a part of our egregore with monthly rituals for benefits in all areas of your life. By the way, after the first ritual, 2 of the, at the time 4 patrons, felt the entities we worked with and had powerful experiences. Plus, we already established the spiritual protection from the Heptarchia kings and princes, and that goes to all patrons. I'm deeply thankful to all of my current patrons, and I hope you too become one, to help me while I help you too. You'll also gain direct access to me and the collective chat to help your journey on top of the exclusive content I post there. Now let's get back to the video. As I was saying, I did the petition to Orias, but I didn't feel his presence, he didn't manifest in any way, he didn't say anything to me, and to be fair, there isn't even much that I could share about this story. The only thing that I can say is that my goal happened to manifest. At the time I was getting to know my girlfriend and was having some anxiety thinking she might not be that much into me, that I should stop trying to meet her. She was just busy and couldn't schedule it in the first 3 times I tried, but I was thinking she may not be interested.
But the very next day after the ritual, I wasn't anxious anymore. I was accepting, and through acceptance came peace. There weren't any powerful signs from the universe, but when thinking about it the next day, I thought of, if she doesn't want, it's okay. I'll just respect it, and I'll still have all the magical, beautiful things that my spiritual practice has brought into my life. So this idea was prevalent, and it was through the acceptance of the things I feared, of the ideas that caused me anxiousness, that I became secure. Ever since, I have yet to feel anxious in a relationship situation. I also have a lot more confidence in myself, in what I bring to the table. And I realized it soon enough. I understood that this was already different. I was through the roof. I was feeling truly awesome, even when facing the possibility of it not working out.
In all previous relationships that I had had, I would often get anxious about minor changes of behavior the person showed towards me. And after that, I became accepting and calmer. I, to this day, still can't say for sure what was it that Orias did, but it was a profound and stable transformation of a deeply rooted part of me that had been my mode of thinking and acting for decades. Something in earlier years before magic, I had just accepted it was how I am and didn't even believe could be changed. Orias showed me the power our mind carries and how we actually can transform parts of our lives that past versions of ourselves would consider impossible. And that's one of the greatest powers magic provides us, transforming ourselves into the best version we can be. Orias is a powerful spirit, one of my favorites to work towards self-transformation within the Goetia system. I can be a little more specific regarding this result, because over time it actually led me to experience the avoidant attachment style, and seeing how myself, while truly loving someone, could still exhibit an avoidant attachment style. I ceased seeing it as an evidence of absence of love. By seeing myself in the opposite side of the situation, I learned how both sides of the spectrum feel and how they both can actually come from love. So I guess that was part of the lesson Orias taught me. And that's how spirits often work on us, nudging us to a path where we learn what we need to learn in order to achieve our goals. I'm very grateful for the way he did it. Often these things can nudge us in a painful, even if necessary, path. The way Orias did it felt optimized for my development, while at the same time minimizing suffering. I've also found good results with Naberius when it came to eloquence and improving my communication skills. But I also didn't feel his presence or spoke with him. I would just a few days later realize that I was using some phrases that I normally wouldn't, and that people were more open to listening to my arguments. Throughout these two experiences, I was still using the ritual that Orobas had given me, with some modification on top of the ritual procedure in the Gallery of Magic books, which didn't feel safe enough to me at the time at least. And that, of course, had already caused some of the scarier stories in my Goetia journey. So at this point I had a few successful works and one that had given me trouble but was later successful. So I was getting confident. And that's when I decided to work with Vasago. At the time I still had no divination method to use, and I already knew of the importance of it from Libernu, who says that any magician should know at least one divinatory process. Vasago is amongst the few Goetia spirits described as being good, and his specialty lied in having the power to declare things past or future, on top of discovering hidden or lost things. So his power is very much in line with divinatory work. So I thought, okay, I can study a lot and learn by myself, or I can ask Vasago, and he can teach me and speed up the whole process, while developing my magic journey at the same time. It will be a new spirit from the Goetia that I had worked with. So it felt like a clear decision, and I did a ritual for learning divination from Vasago. After I burned the cipher, he quickly manifested, at the time with a voice of a woman, and that was one of the first experiences of conversations with spirits where I would hear its voice as different to my own internal dialogue voice. Vassago told me that he would teach me and that I should buy a pendulum, that it would be easier to learn, and if I were smart enough to make prudent yes or no questions, I would be able to figure out anything I wanted to investigate magically. She also said that she would visit me when it arrived to properly teach me, but she stuck with me. I was going to a cousin's house, and Vasago came with me and would whisper small things in my ear sometimes. Since I'm very intimate with this particular cousin, I shared with her what I had done, saying that it was a spirit. I didn't use the word demon, And Vasago even told me that it could answer questions to her, to this cousin of mine, who did ask some questions, and all answers were at least seemingly proper, even in line with what I would have said. Keep in mind that I wouldn't have just said anything Vasago told me. If it were something against my beliefs, I would have kept it to myself. Still, Vasago was very smart, and I was beginning to feel we were gonna have a great relationship. I was being way too trustful, way too quick. Vasago would stick around and we would have more and more talks about a myriad of things as I was coming back from this cousin's house. Eventually, Vasago began saying some very high things of myself. That a particular episode in my life before I knew magic was such a powerful manifestation of divine light that since then a bunch of spirits were around me to protect, take care, and guide. Vasago was telling me how I was an amazingly powerful magician, and that I had previous lives where I had already completed a great work. She told me I had been a witch devoted to Hecate, later a Brazilian shaman, and later a particular Hindu master that I deeply admire. Everything was way too good to be true. But for that night, I believed it and went to sleep, feeling very proud of myself. That night, she also took advantage of me, although I allowed it. She was asking for a semen offering. She wanted me to pleasure myself while seeing her in my mind's eye, and at first I said no, but she insisted and began appearing prettier and prettier in my mind's eye, all around me, touching me, trying to be sexy and stuff. But I said that no, and I started looking at my phone, which simply stopped working. The screen got completely frozen. I wasn't even able to turn it off. I'm not proud, but I ended up doing it, and at the apex, nothing came out, almost as if she had actually sucked it. This had never happened to me before, and never did after either. So I actually ended up giving the semen offering to her. This was the only time I'd done such a thing, but I wasn't scared or worried. I was in a trusting place in relation to Vasago at the time.
I should say something here. Outside of being tricked, I felt no issue regarding the offering I had given. Even though I'm a deep lover of angels, I see no problem in whatever person giving whatever offerings to whatever entities. So I don't think that offering semen or blood is necessarily a big deal. I personally never done blood offerings and have no intention to, and I would never kill animals for my magic, so if I were to do something, it would probably be just those glucose things, measuring devices, But to be fair, I feel no inclined towards that type of practice, although I think it's perfectly valid.
In the next days, she was still there and still reaffirming how great I am. Had she not insisted, I might have believed it and just moved on. But I began questioning further and further details about the episode from my past, and the answers were feeling more and more inconsistent. Until I realized it was probably just a lie to make me feel good about myself and trust her more. She had been manipulating me to trust her so that she would have me in an easily controlled position, where she would be able to drain offerings and all kinds of stuff from me, maybe even create a codependent relationship. When I realized that, I did a big, strong banishing and spent a long time without working with her, even after the Abermelon. Nowadays, and yes, I was saying she because at the time she was presenting in a female voice and a female form, but after I figured out and I did a bit the banishing, she showed up actually as a male form. Although her/his explanations that it doesn't care about gender, doesn't have gender the way we do, and doesn't really matter if you call him a he or a she. I've only began working with her without deceit, indeed after the Abermelon procedure. But in this first contact, she did try to have me under her thumb. I should say, although she did all of that, when the pendulum arrived, she did show up to teach me, as she had promised, but I refused since I didn't trust her. And I learned on my own on YouTube. When I began testing it, she would control the results. I was getting incoherent responses, which only ceased when I understood that was her messing with the pendulum since I wasn't continuing our relationship. And the issue only stopped after a whole consecration process towards Haziel of the pendulum, so that no one could interfere with it. Since then, I work with Haziel for all my divinatory work, so although it was nothing at all like I would have imagined, the process did end up guiding me to actually knowing a divination method. So I guess you let me know if this counts as a success or a failure. I personally count it as a failure because of the trickery and manipulation. I believe Vassago's plan was to have me dependent on her, since she was setting up a structure where I would call her every time I needed any divination work, and that's a big part of our magical journey. So if she succeeded, I could have become a magician completely dependent on her. Way too much power and influence to give to a demon over my life. I'm glad I eventually had the discernment to not fall for it. And please, take this as a cautionary tale. Even the Goetia demons described as being good-natured may still cause us trouble. They each have their particularities and may dislike us or see an egotistical opportunity to abuse us. So please be firm in what you seek from a ritual during the entire process. After this experience, which was not long after my Bafin experience, I knew I had to improve my ritual once again. So in the following days after it, I began rewriting my ritual from scratch in my personal grimoire. I added more fail-safes, I added more divine names, I added some angels to constrain the influences of the spirits, so that they work without deceit or attack, and overall it took a few days of inspirations, but eventually this new and reformed ritual was done. And I wanted to try it out. By the way, this was still not the current ritual I used that I'm making available for patrons. That one only came later after I was way more accustomed to ceremonial magic and had studied many of its methods. But I had this new ritual, safer ritual. So I decided to try it out with Stolas, another Goetia prince, one whom I asked for knowledge regarding stones, herbs, and magic in general. And at the end of the main part of the ritual, let's say the body of the ritual, where after it there's only left to burn the cipher, he already showed up. I saw in my mind's eye, I saw him as an owl, amicably moving its head to nod yes, implying that he would accept what I was asking. Later, I would burn the cipher, and he showed up with more detail, now wearing a crown and being way more beautiful than it's usually seen in the drawings I see online. It was still an owl, not very humane except for the crown, but it was a beautiful owl. I don't know how to describe how an owl can be more beautiful than other owls, but I'm guessing you can imagine something like that. Stolas had a professor vibe and was extremely quick to begin teaching. He first told me of stones, quartz crystals, and other color quartz gems as well. He told me some connections between certain stones and the Sephiroth. He told me of one specifically that I already had in my room and that could be used to increase the strength of one of my servitors, whose action was related to the Sephirah, who's in turn related to the stone. He gave me a method of cleansing for any gems or stones that consisted in holding it inside your hand and drawing divine light into it, while at the same time focusing on the intent, on your will towards this stone and what it needs to help you achieve. Doing this until the surface of the stone is at the same temperature of the palm of your hand, you have successfully programmed it. If you don't know how to imagine this, it's similar to what we do in the LVX ritual from the Golden Dawn, where we imagine divine light at the top of the universe shining and coming towards us. He also told me that before using any crystals for magic, this has to be done with the stone. Over the next days I began doing it, and he showed up 2 more times, just to give tips and further instructions. At the end, I had already created and programmed gems to increase the efficacy of each of my servitors. As when Stolas visited me, he often pointed me to certain crystals that I already had and how they could be implemented in my magic. He also instructed me to putting a quartz crystal at the tip of my wand, which at the time was just made of wood. Everything he told me, I did and felt that had elevated my magic. Also, this new ritual I was trying out with Stolas made everything feel much safer, and I was beginning to have more confidence towards operating the Goetia system once again. Stolas, oh my god, I really liked working with him. He was a great teacher, calm, collected, eager to teach, eager to help me grow. Of course, your mileage may vary. This was my experience, given my personality and the vibe I have. But I see Stolas as a beautiful teacher we can contact. He can teach a multitude of occult areas and can also help you learn while studying on your own or with other teachers. Stolas is to this day one of the Goetia spirits I have more care and good thoughts towards, as usually I'm deeply thankful to all his help during the times I called him.
If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe. Don't forget to check our Patreon. I'm very thankful to everyone who supports us and to everyone who has watched thus far. May all bliss, love, and success come to you.